like? What do you guys need to clean up on?
I mean, there's a lot of plays there, and it's hard to hit it with a broad stroke. But what I did like, I didn't think we started great. There was some execution and make a play things that should have showed up better for us on our side of the ball. It's good to see the offense, make some executable plays there. What I did like as the scrimmage went, if there was, we had a bunch of 3-and-outs, had some takeaways, that stuff was great. But we did give up some explosives. There were some drives that continued, offense making a play here and there. But I thought our response within the drive of, kind of standing up, whether it was the 1s, 2s, or 3s, I thought that was good. That's a positive to see. These reps in Doak are invaluable just because it's a game day type preparation for them, limited meeting time, take the field, tackle football. But overall, we got a lot of players reps in a lot of different situations. We're able to sub in and out, both situationally and just 1-for-1. So, overall, good, clean day for both sides of the ball.
It'll be Irish phone from Warchant.
Hey, Coach. Coach Norvell mentioned that Josh Farmer has been dominant at times this spring. At times, he says he's still scratching the surface. How much fun has it been to see him start to really scratch that surface? I mean, you've been watching him his whole time here.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm having some of those guys over the house tomorrow, and on my phone it popped up when Josh and Pat and Shaheem got here for the first time. They came over the house, at the pool, and I have this picture of those 3 guys. I guess that was 3 years ago. And just the difference they look like now, especially you see it in Josh. I mean, he just gotten his shoulders, and, you guys see it too. You've been here. And now to see that catch up with him playing football. So he's gotten bigger, stronger, more powerful, but the technique is now coming along, which allows him to use all that. And his confidence level is getting better. From that first Louisville game this year to the end of the year, he made strides. I would say he's made as many strides from the end of the bowl game to now. So he's kind of doubled up on his improvement. So, there's no ceiling on where it's got to go. It's just got to be everyday improvement from him. But we're seeing the fundamentals and the trust in Odell. And, I like the direction that he's headed.
Next will be Logan Robinson from Whole Game Day.
Hey, Coach. We heard from Mike Norvell talking about Jarian Jones this week, having one of his best weeks of practices. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about him this spring camp and then what you saw from him during scrimmage this morning?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk from here, this camp on, because he made legitimate strides last year. And, when players grow in your program, seasons end, but the growth or whatever momentum or lack thereof they have still continues. It's not a stop and start. It's more of a continuation. I do think he's taken last year's better play and he's doubled down on it. He's always known he's capable, but it's in your head when you're not playing to the level that you want to play. And so now he's had a little bit of consistency within, play time, within some success. And, we're moving around now. He's playing both corner spots. He's playing nickel. So I think that's helped his confidence because now, look at me. I'm able to play a bunch of different spots, which builds, just confidence. And we only do it because he's capable. He made a really good play last scrimmage on 1-on-1 with Johnny. He's continued that this week. He's battled through, different positions. He's battled through competition. And I just think the grit and the situation that he's been put through is building to become a better J-Dub. And, I think he's got a bright season ahead of him. But that'll only come with the investment. And he knows that. And that's part of the success of it.
All right, next will be back to Bergen.
It seems like there's been a steady flow of takeaways this preseason camp. And Coach Norvell mentioned, I got takeaways. I got you. And it sounds like Coach Norvell said there were some as well today. Is that just a matter of having a lot of guys returning who are just confident in this scheme? Or is there anything you kind of put your finger on as why it's been pretty much a day in, day out, multiple takeaways?
Yeah, takeaways come, sometimes you can be in the wrong position. They throw you the ball, they just fumble and jump on it, right? And so those are unforced errors, but we all count them, right? We're more focused on as a staff of the habits that create them. Those are ball distractions, those are ball disruptions, those are physical takeaways, those are capitalizing on loose balls and mistakes, those are near sideline recoveries, those are tip balls, those are outside hand waves. There's just so many things. And so what we do is we try to rep that throughout the off season. So they quantify. And now as players get older, it's repetition. It is a learned skill. There are some natural guys that are on the ball, but I do think it's a learned trait. And I know this, the faster and more physical you are, the more takeaways that usually come. So within depth, within experience, within comfortability in the scheme, you can play faster. It's all a habit of it. But we chart ball disruptions and takeaway attempts as much as we tack. The end result's easy. You can count to 4 pretty simply or 3, but it's the volume and the quality of the other ones that will create the numbers down the line. So those are the things we harp on. I've had years where we've come away when we've been top 10 in the country, and I've had years that we've dropped down numbers, but I try not to judge it by the totality of numbers. I try to judge it on the habits, and those are getting better.
Kurt Weiler from the Osceola.
Hey, Adam, I know one of those takeaways today was ventrell. I know he's kind of been a regular mission takeaway guy this spring. How impressed have you been? I mean, with him coming into a room with so many new guys. I know Coach Norvell talked about how impressed he's been with how natural he's kind of been as a leader right away. How impressed are you? I mean, maybe the experience in the game helps, but how natural he's taken to that.
I think ventrell's, movement into the program and, his leadership has all just come by the way he carries himself. He's not an overly vocal player at this standpoint, but that's his personality. But he shows up because he's consistent. He tries to be his best every day. He's prepared for meetings. He's prepared to play, whether it's perimeter drill 1-on-1s or 7-on-7, pursuit drill. He's pretty reliable as far as being there, being accountable, and being somebody that you can count on. I'm glad he's got some ball production today, which has helped him. We saw him have a nice open field sideline tackle last scrimmage. So we're seeing a complete player. We've also repped him a little bit at nickel this week too, trying to open up his game and just put him in more situations within the defense to try to accelerate that growth within our program. And, ventrell's, he's eating it all up day by day. And, I think he's fit in pretty seamlessly right now, with that group.
And we'll go back to Ira.
We know you like to rotate defensive linemen as much as possible. Is linebacker a position where you'd like to have a lot of depth, not just because of injuries, but just you want to rotate guys? And how many linebackers do you think you guys will have that you might be able to count on going into next fall?
That's a great question. There's only so many scholarships. So you got to put them in certain positions. I think where the depth at linebacker really shows up is in the kicking game. You need those bodies to cover kicks, to protect kicks, to block on return units, just to match up with other tight ends and running backs that are out there. And nowadays, when a lot of teams play with one back on the field, so your numbers at that position aren't very high. A lot of teams are playing with one tight end on the field, so now your numbers some teams are playing with 2 linebackers on the field, so your numbers have dropped down. So you got to make sure in those position groups, those are all similar body types. And in order to defend each other on the field, they're in 11. So there's one back, one tight end, you get 2 linebackers out, you're 2 for 2. But in the kicking game with all that space, there's multitude of different body types that you got to be able to match up with. So, I think in the past, when your linebacker group is really good, your special teams have really been impacted in a positive way. And so, yes, it's going to help if we have 5 to 6 linebackers that can play. That's really going to help us on linebacker depth, but it'll make our kicking game that much more substantial. And I think that's part of the development of that position.
Go back to Brendan.
Following up on that, I know it's super early in his career, but saw some good things from DeMarco Ward during Thursday's practice. It sounds like Coach Norvell was pretty happy with how he's progressed. I guess at this point, Adam, are you feeling comfortable with we hit on this evaluation that he has the potential to develop into something pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, it's super early in the whole process. But for a high school player to come in and take the reps that he's taken, that's a credit to him. I know he's been down there a lot with Coach Shannon and, the linebacker staff. I think his development has been on time. And I think he's working at it. And, we'll see where that goes from this year standpoint. But there's just so much work to get done with these guys that just got here. But, definitely he's getting an abundance of reps right now. And that'll usually pay off down the road.
Next will be Aslan Tajabedi from Warchant.
Coach, seems like Akeem and Shaheem are two guys that play with a lot of confidence. They both look like they're physically well put together. What sort of things are you hoping to get out of them here in the next, 7 sort of practices for a next step? And is Quintin Darius at a point where, as a true freshman, you feel comfortable maybe putting more on his plate at this part of the spring?
Well, Akeem and Shai, they've played a lot of snaps here, and so that's got to show up. It's got to show up and playing with a little bit more anticipation. We've got to make more ball plays back there, and the ball's in the air. We've got to make sure that ball ends up in our hands. We can be better at that spot at this point in the spring. I think the safety with moving Duke there. I think it's added a group that I'm excited to work with. But we need more production at safety at this point in the spring. That's got to happen. Run game, pass game, leadership in the communication. And I don't question that it will, but it needs to happen like now. Quintin Darius, I would say he's as far along as, some of the freshman corners that we brought in. They're all a little bit different. Physically, he's as skilled as anybody we brought in from a standpoint of be able to play Division I football. Size, speed, he's got competitiveness to him. He's pretty comfortable around the ball. I think, I had a meeting with him last week of, he's done some really good things. I've seen him progress. I'm seeing the coaching. I watched Coach Sertan's drill tape, and then I watched the team reps, and you're seeing those things applied. So that usually will help a player get better. I just sat down with Quinn last week and said, this race to the end of spring is critical for you to be able to gain that momentum to bring into the summer so that these fall camp reps will count from a standpoint of actual football reps for, this fall, I'd like him to be able to help us, with some depth and, all signs point that that's going to happen, but, there's still ways to go with these early enrollees.
Next will be Corey Clark from Warchant.
Yeah, Adam, I kind of wanted to ask you about the other side of the ball, and the receivers particularly. Johnny's his own thing, so we won't even count him. But what other receiver, maybe one or two guys, have consistently shown up, given your DBs problems, maybe had a couple of big plays today? What other guys on that side of the ball have you seen really step up here in the first 9 practices, and today specifically, if there was one?
I'm going to talk more in the totality of spring than today. I think Tron has been really good. I think his growth on our football team, you see it on special teams film from last year. There's a lot of teach tapes that Coach JP will show, and Tron's at the front of it. And that stuff is carried over to offense for him. And, he's got a big catch radius. His routes, he looks faster, and his routes look a lot crisper right now. Another guy that I think is really, is an early enrollee, but Gray Jacobs has really shown up. I think he's flashed. His ability to play the ball, is really remarkable. Just wherever it is, he really reacts to it, gets his hands in a really good place. Ja'Kai Douglas has flashed against us, a number of times. You can kind of go down that list. But those are the guys that definitely have caught my attention and our attention, and, we're excited for it.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, guys.
Recording stopped.